Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Shaft podcast. My name is Erasmus Segbefia, with another interview for you today, and we're here to take you on an immersive journey into the world of African debates. In this episode, we'll be diving into a myriad of issues surrounding this particular individual and also around the debate stories which we have to share. So we want to look to um, dig out some of your deepest curiosities and leave you inspired to come back for more. So, yeah, we thank you very much for making it with us today. Before I go on, I'd like to seek for one request, and also in that, we would like to celebrate a milestone. So, we have been able to reach 1K followers. Hooray! We never thought we'll get to this point. Mama, we made it. But as ambitious as we are as debaters, we are still looking to evolve this platform, make it much bigger. So, would encourage you to do us a favor this time, hit on that subscribe button if you haven't. If you have, we would advise that people within your circle do that also. Your coaches, your students within the union, even your parents, let them see what debate is all about. Whenever they give you money, they know where exactly it's going to and the kind of things that we do over here. We'd like all of you guys to subscribe. We're trying to hit the 2,000 mark. And I think from here on, you're going to see more ideas and evolutions about the show. All right. Well, that's it for the show. Today we have a special guest within our midst. This is a very, very special man. Someone who has done incredible feats or incredible things within the debate circuit. I have a feeling that this man is loaded with a lot of answers, with a lot of opinions, and a lot of things that they could share about their debate journey, about the debate community, and certainly how to improve it. I'll tell you this for free. Some of the conversations that we're going to have over here, these are conversations that we used to be having way back from when I knew this man, and he's always been super interested with debate, and it's amazing to see how far he's come with this. So I'll give him the opportunity to introduce himself. But ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Njuguna Macharia. Welcome, Macharia. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me, Erasmus, today.
You're welcome. It's incredible. I think you have one of the most unique names within the African debate circuit, and it really stands out. I'm curious because I've never asked you before. What does it mean? I know you're Kenyan, but I don't know the
Yes.
specific tribe. But what does it mean?
The second part of my name means he who searches and he who looks for. So Sharia means to look for things. So the name basically means the one who looks for things or the one who likes to search. I think you can translate it to a curious individual, which is very, I guess, ironic, depending based on the conversation we are having today on debate and what we do.
Yeah, that's. I think maybe this the first part also then fits into what we're looking for within debates, where you keep on searching and where you keep on looking for.
Curiosity. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it
Basic.
brought you within the right space. So welcome so much, Masheria. I know we've spoken about getting you on the podcast and getting to have these discussions for quite a while now, and very happy that eventually you've come to land. I'm actually looking forward to some of the answers which you have for us for this
Yeah.
episode. So
Yeah.
I want to quickly delve in by first centering a bit more about you. How would you describe yourself? How would you describe your journey and where you've come to so far? Who are you? When we say the name Masheria, what are people remembering you for, especially within the context of debating?
I think for me, my name Macharia or Njuguna Macharia, many of my friends or many people who know me, they call me Baba, which means the father. And I think if anyone was to characterize me or what I would characterize myself is, I think I've played quite a fatherly role, especially where I'm from, in terms of creating spaces, building people. I call all of the debaters, most of them in my region, my children, because one time or another I was training them or debating against them or just guiding them on one way or another. I'm an administrator, which is basically a fatherly role. I organize all tournaments, I organize many events, I organize fundraisings for people to travel. So I think if I was to characterize what my impact has been, I don't know if this might, some might agree, some might not. I think it has been very fatherly. Also a disciplinary role. Sometimes I'm disciplining people who misbehave in the circuit. So yeah, it's a very fatherly role I've played. So far, so good.
Yeah, I totally have to agree with you. And like, I think I should have actually remembered it. The name Baba just like
Mm.
goes beyond the Kenyan circuits. I think it's a name that like now everyone else within Africa describes you by, or that's what we all call you now. And it sort
Mm.
of like takes me back to 2018 in Tanzania, which was the first time that we met you. I think the very first conversation that we had was this guy was like, "Oh, East Africa, like, yeah, I'm here for East Africa," and it didn't sound like you were even there just for yourself. And I mean, you were a very, very good debater, and you were very, very representative of yourself. But you were more like, "Oh, for me, I'm here to pick up knowledge that I can use to help my people, and I'm trying to build a circuit." So when
Yeah.
we reflect on this journey up to this point, I think it's incredible the number of things you've done, and we'll be able to look into those specific things. But
Yeah.
what would you say was the driving motivation to even start debate in the first place, and where did that vision of looking to build up the circuits even come in within your story?
So I think you have to go back to the beginning. I used to debate a bit in high school. I also did a bit of MUN.
Mm.
I didn't really enjoy
Oh,
MUN as
the
much. We got
favorites.
to travel. We went to get to travel, get out of school, go for conferences, wear nice suits. So I didn't mind MUN, and I would go for the conferences. I was always a good delegate. And then in my country, we used to have a show called the Great Debaters Contest. So it was a national debate program that would air on TV every Saturday morning. So every kid wanted to be on TV. So I remember my
Mm.
school was invited and they just were like, who are the best speakers we have in the school? So I was a journalist and I used to read the news, the sports news for school every Friday and Monday during assembly. And they were like, you're a good speaker. Why don't you go? And we did so well at the Great Debaters Contest. And I was like very fascinated that I could debate. But I think the real journey started in campus. And I started debating in a very weird way because I remember one of my seniors in third year at the time, her name was Ruth. She came to our class and we were in first year law school, and they were like, who here has ever done a debate tournament? And I raised my hand. And she was like, okay, we're going for a tournament on Saturday. And this was Wednesday. And I was like, wait, but I don't know what to do. I don't even know the format. So, but I was very curious. Like my name suggests, I was like, okay, I mean, I'm doing nothing on Saturday. Might as well go because I also enjoy socializing. And I made it to semis at that tournament. And I think I was the best male speaker in first year. So randomly, I think the way things worked out was that tournament I did not know at the time was like the national tournament, but it was quite a
Mm.
small thing at the time. So
Mm.
they were sponsoring the best people to go for PAUDC, and that was in Zimbabwe 2016. And so
Mm.
for some reason in November 30th, and PAUDC was starting on 8th, I get a call and they're like, "Do you want to go to Zimbabwe for
Of
PAUDC?"
course.
I'm like, "Are you paid?" Yes. Everything is paid for. Yes. You're sure? Yes. And I think somebody's did have a passport, which is why they called me. And I was like, sure, let's go. And that was where my mind changed because when I got to Zimbabwe, I saw something I have never experienced in my life.
Mm.
It was
Mm.
almost cultural. It was not spiritual. It was culturally shaking because all these brilliant individuals from all around the world, I mean the
Mm.
continent, here at one place arguing, challenging each other, and it was such a, like, I don't know, the environment was very, very entertaining. The socials were amazing. I was like, why don't we have more of this? And so that was where I made it my purpose to say, we must make this something that happens even in our region and our where we are from. And I think that's
Mm.
where I started now the culture of building the first thing I did when I got home was to register the debate society, not register, but revive the debate society at
Mm.
Strathmore and try to build this so that more people can experience what I experienced in Zimbabwe.
No, that's really really an incredible story. I was not Zimbabwe myself, but I feel like I can connect with what you say with regards to seeing a debate competition, especially on that scale for the first time, and just like the kind of people that you'd meet over there. So I'm not too surprised, like in terms of how you felt and essentially what you took away from it. But what I've come to discover is that, like, I don't know why a lot of debaters tend to stumble into debates in some way or form. It
Yeah,
does feel like for you to be a great debater, you sort of have to stumble into debate in some way or form.
yeah.
Very very interesting story over there. But
Mm.
let's pick up from that journey over there. I know the 2017 PADC was not like the most glamorous one, but
I think it was the most dramatic one. If you asked me, we went through a lot. Anyone who was there can give you stories for days.
no, let's start picking up on that. So from within PADC 2016, let's say to PADC 2018, what sort of work then was going into it, both on a personal level to improve? Because I'm sure you thought, okay, for me to build a circuit over here, I have to be good first, right? So, what were some of the things that were going on? What were some of the stories
Mm.
and things you were experiencing in the lead up to 2018, where I feel like things began to pop up to the front?
So it was 2 years of, I think, I don't know, grant work or manual labor, or I don't know what to call it, but it was a lot of work that is not really yielding too much results, because we were now beginning a society and we started with 6 people. I remember our first
Hmm.
meeting, we were 6 of us, and it looked like as if we couldn't do anything. And so the work that went in was on multiple levels. At an individual level, I made it like a personal mission to improve. So I went to look for every debate resource that could exist. That's when I stumbled. Anyone who is old enough knows, like, those Oliver Dixon books, like Burdens of Proof, Basic
Yeah.
Strategy. I was reading everything, a James articles. I was finding
Mm.
everything and anything I could read in order to become good at debate. But you see, the problem with that sometimes is when you're consuming too much information with no strategy for what exactly you're doing, it's just information. And
Yeah.
then that makes it more difficult because everyone in the circuit is now looking up to you to guide
Yeah.
them on what to do. So I was trying to teach my juniors while at the same time learning, which was a huge problem. So 2016, 2017 is just a lot of learning and then building a society. I think that's the one thing I did well in 2017, because by the time we were completing 2017, remember, Mad Zimbabwe has ended in December 2016. The society, we are reviving it in 2017, January. By December, we were already like 60 members. So we had grown quite
Mm.
exponentially. Kids were interested in debating. We were hosting training sessions, inviting other universities to come and join. We were hosting Friday debates. So every Friday in Kenya, we would have like a friendly debate where different universities would come to Strathmore and we just have a round and then give feedback and everybody goes home. And so it was just a lot of like laying of foundations, building societies, getting the correct resources for training. I was in everybody's inbox who I knew could debate. So I'm sure if people like Jamie Mighty go back to like their messengers in like 2017, they'll probably find something from me there like, hi, I've just seen this debate of yours and I saw this. They never responded, but I wrote to them anyway. So I really used to just consume information and we would build societies. And I think the good thing with me is that I've never been shy from a challenge. So I kept challenging myself. I went to nationals again, and this year I won. So now I won another
Wow.
ticket to go to UDC 2017, which was now where I think we got the second experience of PAUDC. It was not like the first one. I think this one was a different cultural shift, but it
Yeah.
still moved something to make things better. And I came back again from PAUDC even more motivated to create even further change and more impact in the
Y-
society.
Yeah, so before I move on, I just wanted to touch on it feels like I don't know if you know those moments where an artist all of a sudden blows up and then you're like, oh, this guy was in my DM. He used to like DM these guys and it's like he was ignored.
No,
But yeah, I'm sure you proved yourself later on. So like no one ignores the DM anymore. Uh,
yeah,
but
no, yeah,
no, that's very interesting. I think what I get from your story was a level of intentionality. We
yeah,
don't see that a lot these days. For you, not just even like growing a society, but like growing a circuit, which for me
mm,
is a very, very, very big and challenging task. I don't enjoy it. I won't lie to you. We see new circuits spring up, and the people who have to put in the initial work need to do a lot because they have to lead themselves, and eventually they have to lead like a whole section of people. Let me just
yeah,
ask for your opinion on this. We are
mm,
seeing a lot of societies, a lot of unions die out, especially within Africa and under the umbrella of PUDC, especially after
mm,
COVID, and not seeing
mm,
much rebuilding. People are taking unions for granted. People now exist even without like unions. What would
mm.
you say is going on, and what would you suggest as the remedy for us to continue to maintain our unions? Because that is the bedrock of African debate, if you ask me.
Yeah, I like that because it's something I'm very passionate about. The idea of unions. Here's why unions die. It's
Hmm.
very simple. It's They are based on personalities. When the union is about individuals and personalities, like for a very long time, African unions were built on the cult of personality. So you'd find that the union was representative of somebody's identity. Like
Yes.
being president was very little about being president, but you must be the top dog to be the
Yeah.
union head or to be the one there. And that was why unions would die, because immediately those people would leave, then these people had no interest in having built what is called the structure needed for continuity. So many unions had built personalities, and what would happen is that the personalities would be replaced by the next substitute for their personality or the next biggest dog when they are done. And so we were just replacing top dogs with top dogs, and whoever has like the biggest amount of trophies or the most
Yeah.
amount of wins or the one who is the most popular. But that's not always the case when it comes to efficient, because here's what people forget: a union is two things. One, there's competitive debate, and then there's two, debate administration. The best competitive debaters are not always the best debate administrators. So I think this whole concept that for you to be a union president, you must be the best debater. That's what I mean by the cult of personalities. So we forgot to build sustainable structures where the people who are running the union are the people who are best at administering the union, because union or administrative work is not interesting work. It's paperwork, it's reports, it's marketing, it's things that have very little to do with debate. Maybe you need the knowledge, but it's more
Hmm.
about skill sets, reliabilities, and just how functional you are at administrative work. So many unions died because they were relying on the personalities, and when these personalities left, they didn't leave the structures necessary for that continuity to happen. The second thing I feel like unions didn't embrace well enough is we became so embroiled in the competitive nature of debate. We forget
Hmm.
why people come to debate. Debate is more social than it is even about the competitiveness. 90% of union members will never win major tournaments. They're not
Yeah.
there to win. I mean, look at KNUST. You can count people who have won trophies. They are like 10 or 9, but the union has had hundreds of members since. If you look at any union, the people who win are a very small percentage. But because we over focus on that, we forget the main reason why our unions exist. Our unions exist to first build people and the capacity building, not only for competitions, but just for competence on knowledge and public speaking skills and debate skills. But secondly, and more importantly, is for people to network and make friends. Some of my best friends have been from debate, and I'm sure some of yours too have come from debate. So unions didn't build the social cohesion that was needed for sustainability, because when members don't feel bonded, they don't feel like they love each other or they want to even hang out with each other, then they are the ones who, when there's any inconvenience, they'll find any excuse not to come for debate, which is something I think we were very intentional with when I was building the union. And when we were building the unions here in East Africa, we were very intentional about that. And then the third thing that I think really affected unions was, over and above the lack of structure, the personality based leadership, and the lack of social like intentional efforts to create social efforts, is I think COVID really messed up funding for people,
Yeah.
and that just made it impossible for people to compete. And when people can't compete, it becomes difficult for the union to
Mm,
sustain or remain relevant. So I
mm,
think that's the most minor, but the most talked about. I think the other three are more important in why many unions in Africa used to exist, now they don't.
mm.
I think it's just all those transitions were managed badly.
Yeah, like this is so much crucial information and knowledge. I feel like it is just not talked about enough. I come from an era where unions were very, very strong. Like even if you had a small budding union, they had some sort of presence. And even for Strathmore, like everyone used to speak about Strathmore. Everyone knew about the Strathmore girls. Everyone knew about like the Strathmore debate society. But
Mm.
I do agree that I was mostly hang on individuals who were more than willing to uh, do some of these things. Like for me, one of the greatest debate administrators I'd seen was David Atakpa, who is the brother of Jacob Atakpa.
Mm.
But you are not going to see him with like a lot of trophies across Africa or anything. But these
Exactly.
guys were very, very
Ex-
smart, especially about
Exactly.
debates, how to negotiate with administration, how to relate with
Exactly.
different
Exactly.
people and organizations, stuff like. And I feel like that is what is missing a bit from debates now. We have a lot of enthusiasts. We have people who are just excited to debate, but the craftiness, the you know what I
The
mean? Like,
I know what you mean. There
yeah,
are debate. I call them the debate cabal. You know those people who pull the
yes,
strings in the backgrounds. You don't see them, you
yes,
don't hear them, but they are moving things, and that's the problem. You
exactly.
see, the Davids will not be the people we praise. They are not
No,
the people you will elect your presidents, because they don't have that cult of personalities. But if you
yeah,
ask me, those are the people who should be leading the unions, because
yeah,
it even allows the competitive speakers the freedom to do what they do
yes,
best. Like, you go
yes,
debate, you go win. Leave the negotiation for funding,
yeah,
rooms, organizing tournaments. Leave that to us, so that you
yeah.
guys can do what you do best. And I think we don't have enough of such people, and those are the people who sustain unions.
Yeah, I think we lost a lot of talent in that regard. And just to point out another thing you said around the successes of unions, I think our previous episode during the Shafts board, we were just talking about how the success with debate has been narrowly defined. It sort of had to stick with um, winning a few trophies, where and also seeing you knowing you're a successful debater is dependent on if you've traveled for a few tournaments. So like I don't know, I've traveled to 3 countries. So maybe for me that's it. I've reached the pinnacle of debate and there's nothing to achieve anymore. So more recently what I've been uncovering is stories around debates where these are individuals who they don't have like big household names within debates, but they're doing incredible things. Someone was just telling me about someone within debates who is living with sickle cell, and they just constantly came to debate tournaments, and it's such a moving story because they come to debate tournaments sometimes at the against the advice of their parents, stuff like that, and emergencies happen at the tournaments, but they still wanted to continue debating. And today, because of debates, they are able to sit on boards which are talking about sickle cell. They're able to pull funding for and advocate for people living with sickle cell. They themselves have been able to put themselves at the forefront of speaking and organizing around this. Nobody's talking about that. People just want to think
Yeah.
about the next PADC trophy. But this is someone who is making a real life impact, changing
Exactly.
lives. But no one is
I
talking
can,
about that.
I
So I
can
think
give you
it's
a story or
incredible.
two. Let me give you a story or two of some of my
Yes.
the things I remember when I was president. We won a lot of debates. I rarely even remember the names of those debates, but I can tell you some of the things I don't forget. I was in third year and we were doing a hike somewhere in Mount Longonot, and I was president. So I remember I would like to talk to the new members. And I remember I was talking with three girls as we were walking up the mountain,
Mm,
and they were like, one of them just randomly said, it was the most random thing. He told
mhm,
me, Macharia, you know what? Like, I know I'm never gonna win a tournament, but I must always come for debate. I was like, why?
mm,
I'm like, the environment you guys have created, because it was a whole leadership team, is so
mm.
amazing. I feel so at home. I feel so like these are my people. And they actually told us that they were suffering from depression and they were
Wow.
actually suicidal and were going to leave, was going to actually, like, they were going
Wow.
to take their own lives until they one day stumbled, as you said, into debate. And they met this group of people who gave them a new lease of life. 1 year on, and they are feeling as if they are completely different because of the group they
Wow.
met. That I think is why we do what we do. Another person tells me they are now a leader. I think in my school, several student presidents became presidents
Mm,
because they were
mhm,
in debate club. They were like, they
mm,
didn't know they were leaders until they came to debate,
mm,
found out that their voice, they can actually speak, they can think, they can
mhm.
come up with policies, they know how to do this. They ended up student presidents in the school.
Wow.
I think almost 3 years in a row, the heads of the unions were of the student presidency in our school were
Yeah.
all debate club members. I mean, very ironic again. And the third one, I several of our people have actually gotten like very big scholarships to go to Ivy League
Mm,
universities just because they were good at debate. So debate is success, as you're saying, is so
mm,
narrow to the debater, but the skill set that you get from debate is life changing beyond the
mhm.
7 minutes speeches we give. It's I mean, you can get so many stories of
It's
success that is not what is defined by the rest of
mm.
society.
I'm so happy for these examples, and some of these things are they are very very moving for me. It beats all of the things we talk about now in terms of success, and even in the context of Africa, I always say that what debates can do for Africa, we've not scratched the surface at all.
Not
Um,
even a bit.
I'm not even comparing because I live in the West now, and the view around debate is like it's a side sport or it's an extracurricular activity. People sort of
Mm.
have the feeling of okay, decide to do it or not, and for a number of reasons, most people once they come up within the educational system are educated about certain things already. There's sort of like a globalized view on education. Most people are already confident from their homes, from governmental policies and structures which are already in place. But I say for the
Yep.
student from Africa, for some of us, our backgrounds and where we come from, what debate is able to add onto our lives is exponential in terms of where it sets us up to. Like even for me, the personal story and what debates gave me, and just the ability to work within a global company. Some of the things you said, like the administrative work that you have to do, are some of the things
Mm.
which have defined my career to a certain degree. And this is the platform where we want to continue to speak about some of these things. I'm very, very, very happy for you sharing some of these stories. I'm very, very
Yeah.
happy. All
No, I
right,
think
cool.
it's amazing. I agree with you.
Wonderful. So let's continue the discussion, right? So let's bring it back to PAEDC now 2018, and now PAEDC
Yeah.
is in Tanzania. I believe this is the first time then it's come to East Africa, right?
Yep.
What went, and I'm sure like people like Dominic may be able to answer what went into bringing it to East Africa. Looking to get from you is an understanding from your perspective. What do you think went into bringing it there, and what did you see change? How
Mm.
did it change the circuit, and how important was it that we had PADC on East African soil?
Mm. I can speak for Dominic because Dominic is a good friend of mine, and I have heard the story of PADC 2018 50 to 100 times from Dominic in different languages. So I can tell you the step by step, but I don't want to do that. But I can tell you what it took and then what it changed. What
Mhm,
it took was, I think, and I can give Dominic 100% credit. He ran a one-man army. And I
mhm,
think anybody who was in, because the PAUDC Tanzania bid was approved in Mad Zimbabwe 2016. And I was there. So I met Dominic. I
Yeah.
remember the scheming that was going on. And I remember at that point, East Africa was not even like a place that anybody knew debate existed. So
Mm.
Dominic is busy trying to convince people of an East African bid. But the South was like, bruh, who is this guy? First of all, and he's alone and he's trying to mobilize an entire win. And I think there was a competing bid from Namibia that was expected to was it Namibia or Botswana? One of the two. They wanted to also bid to host because at that point, PUDC before 2016 was concentrated heavily in the south. So I
Yes.
think the West fought very hard. And I think the first time it went to the West was it 2013 in
15.
Calabar?
Yeah,
Or it
it's
was
in 13
15?
in Calabar. No, it was 13
13
in
in Calabar,
Calabar.
and then it came in 2015.
15,
But
yes.
East Africa had not ever negotiated anything. So Dominic somehow manages to convince the entire continent alone, mind you. I can't even take credit for this because I didn't help him. I didn't even lobby one vote. But he did it all on his own with the help of a few. I hear David Ejim was very
Yeah, the
instrumental
West African
in that
coalition.
West Africa, East Africa connection. Because I think they were like, I think Dominic and Ejim were very like radical on we can't concentrate debate only in the South. It needs to
Yeah.
move out. So Ejim at that point was running on Cameroon 2017. And I think then Dominic was running with Tanzania 2018. And the idea was we need to be more representative, which is a brilliant idea. I think that was probably a turning point for PAUDC. And that's how they managed to get PAUDC to come to Tanzania in 2018. It was a revolutionary moment because I don't
Mm.
even think many East Africans knew there was something called PAUDC until
Yeah.
it was happening in Tanzania. And then everybody now was so excited. And so now there was supposed to be a build up to PAUDC. So
Mm.
all our regional tournaments became even bigger because now everybody wants to go to PADC. So our opens became bigger. Our nationals, I think that year became the largest ever. The EAUDC that year, 2018, was the largest ever. So
Mm.
a lot of East Africans finally started engaging with the debate just based on the hope that finally PAUDC has come to East Africa. We must put up a good showing. Even if we don't win, they must know we exist. And that was, I think,
Mhm.
the whole mantra of the whole thing. So now all of a sudden in East Africa, there's a tournament every month, or there's every 2 months, there's a tournament. Trainings are going on left, right, and center. There's a lot of like collaboration between different groups to try and get debate kickstarted in different places, just
Mm.
so that we can be able to see the change that we wanted. And to be honest, after PAUDC 2018, there was not, I think Kenya showed up very well. Uganda
Yeah.
also showed up, maybe not as well as they could have, but they did show up. I think
Yeah.
Tanzania has never really had a big university circuit, so we're not really relying on them too much. But Kenya and Uganda showed up. And what I can tell you is the people who showed up for 2018 have been leaders of debate in East Africa for almost 5 years
Mm.
after that. It changed
Wow.
everyone. I think everyone who was there took up a bigger responsibility in growing debate.
Mhm.
Whether it was in Kenya, the people who are there are the people who went back to even grow stronger unions,
Yeah.
opened different competitions, even started organizations to build debate. Uganda, the same thing. I think the biggest impact of PAUDC 2018 over and above showing the entire continent that there's actually debate in East Africa and it's a wonderful
Mhm.
place, it was that many of the East Africans who got there, I think they had that cultural shift I had in
Yeah.
Mad Zimbabwe. They were like,
2016.
let's go and work, let's go and build. And all those people, I even know them by head. I remember there was teams from Shabil right now is the convener of PAUDC. He was there. Sebastian, the same thing. Blair was like a head of a certain debate competition and organization that has been running debate in Uganda for a very long time.
Mm.
In Kenya, it was people like me, the Wairimos, all the people who were at that competition ended up playing very pivotal roles in the growth of debate in the region, which I think was the biggest impact of East Africa. But I think the other one that I've mentioned slightly, but I think still changed a lot, is people's perception of East Africa changed in Tanzania because people didn't know East Africa was actually a debate nation. So people
Yeah.
came, they saw this is a fantastic place. Dar es Salaam is an
Yeah.
amazing place. They enjoyed, the food was good. They were sleeping in good hotels. They
yeah,
enjoyed themselves, and they were like, okay. I think people's perception of East Africa changed. They were like,
yeah,
this is not like those. I think they must have thought there's nothing going on there. They were like,
yeah,
actually, no, it's a very fantastic place. And now Africa was open to East Africa. Look, since 2018, we've had PAUDC in Kenya.
yeah.
2020, I think, was also in Kampala online, and there's another one in 2024. People are more receptive to East Africa because of that experience in 2018. Credit to Dominic Fuamba for the beginning of the revolution.
Yeah, I definitely need to bring Dominic into the studios one of these days. We're still talking about it to bring him in here. But yeah,
Yeah,
I think that 2018 PADC was it meant a lot. It meant a lot, obviously, to us also in West Africa because it was the first time the trophy also shifted from the south and came into West
yeah,
Africa. So there was the feeling of revolution. There was a feeling of the rebirth of debate in itself, like beyond the shores of South Africa. And if you see how things have eventually played out, especially seeing the decline of unions within South Africa, within Southern Africa, you'd
yeah.
realize that this was a good move to diversify debate because
Wait.
now the West and the East have held it up for a
Yeah,
very, very long time to give
yeah,
space for the revival to happen within Southern Africa. And I think this is what we should be looking to do. So I
yeah,
mean, from this, I want to ask this, and this might be an even more difficult question to answer.
yeah,
Do you think we are still seeing the impacts of bids in the way in which bids like the 2018 bid, bids like the 2017 bids
yeah.
we're having on circuits, we're having on individuals, and we're having on debaters? Do you still think that the hosting of PUDC in itself, of which we are going to come into because you were
Mm.
you've also been a convener at a point. Do you think we are seeing the importance of that within our circuits, that circuit shift, that cultural shift?
Do
Are we
you
still
do
seeing
you
that,
mean
and what's missing?
do you mean internally or externally? Like, is it
Both
internally in
for
terms
me.
of shifting? Or okay, both.
Yeah, both.
Yeah, I think you can talk about, I think each bid is peculiar. So each bid has had its own internal and external moments in which it has shifted things culturally. For example, in 2017, you were not in Cameroon, I was, so I
Yeah,
can give you the
yeah.
story. I think it opened up Cameroonian debate one way or another. Well, this,
Mhm,
regardless of what you say, Cameroonian debate has been quite active in the Pan African space. They usually attend PAUDC, and even if you follow like the people within the space, there's usually a lot of things going on internally. So I do think it did open up because all these people came to Cameroon and they were, I think it opened up their space to
mhm,
almost validating their circuit and giving them the boost needed for them to continue to grow.
mhm.
What Cameroon did, though, externally, is I think it was not. Are we supposed to be filtered? But I don't know how to.
No, no.
But
I mean this.
again, it was an
This is
organizational
unfiltered.
disaster. It was an organizational disaster. Like, credit to everyone who came, and I think they did their best, but I don't think they were ready organizationally. So what
Mhm,
that did is that I think it opened up bids to more scrutiny because everyone was like, we don't want to have another moment like this externally. So those who are there were very critical of everything that happened and were like, we need to
mhm,
scrutinize bids a bit more. So I think that
mhm,
had its own cultural shift internally. Externally, I think we were opened up to a completely new place, but at the same time, I think it also opened people's eyes to don't just follow bids blindly. Sometimes be a bit more. And I don't think it was their fault. Don't get me wrong. I'm not
yeah.
calling them out, but a lot of things went wrong. Some things went. A lot of things also went right, but there were a lot of things that didn't go right. And I think they
Yeah.
did their best, but people were not happy. I think
I
if you do a poll, 80% will tell you no, things went
yeah,
wrong.
I remember we were supposed to go to Cameroon, and which is funny because it's also a PADC that people don't seem to talk about too much. Everyone is just like Tanzania, Kofina, then like Zimbabwe,
Ask me,
and
I'll
it's
tell
like
you what happened. I can tell
what
you what
happened?
happened.
What happened? Because I know we were supposed to come, right? and then
Drum.
we got a letter from the school saying there are guns,
They are gang.
there's
Exactly.
shootings.
Let me tell you a story. Erasmus, this story I give it to everyone because this is how we realize things were thick. We got there. I'll not even talk about what happened in the beginning, but the first thing is that there were no visas. They had promised everyone visas on arrival. So we were stranded at the airport for 10 hours. Have you ever sat on an
What?
airport floor for 10 hours waiting for
What?
visas? It was crazy. We get the visas eventually. I don't know how they pull it off, but then we get this escort to the place where we are supposed to be going. We get to where we are supposed to be going in Boya, which is like 5 hours or 4 hours away from the capital. And then you
Mm.
get there and there's no accommodation that has been booked. So we were being dropped in hotels one by one, literally. Like the bus goes parks, they go talk to the hotel, what is it called? Front desk. How many rooms do you have? 8. From that, you hear 16 people get out, go and enter this hotel, like that, like that, like that, until they completed everyone. So they were booking. Most hotels had not been booked. I know
On
that
the
for a
go.
fact. Yes, they were booking on the go. I don't know whether what that was the plan or something had happened. I don't know. I think the convener should give us these stories a bit better because I remember we started looking for hotels at around 5, 6 p.m. I was getting to my hotel at 1, 2 a.m. I was
Wow.
among the last people to be dropped off. And when I get to my hotel room, this is how we knew things were thick. I turn on my, you know that you turn on your TV in a hotel room just find out what's going on. And I'm in a
Yeah,
news,
yeah, see.
and the news channel says, I don't know, rebel groups and the government exchange fire for 5 hours in this town. 5 people feared dead. I'm like, let me check where this town is. And then when you check Google Maps, it tells you this town is like 20 kilometers from where you are. And I'm like, oh my God, guys, we're in a war zone. And it was crazy. Somewhere in the middle of the tournament, Erasmus, I kid you not, the internet is shut down by the government. You are able to
Whoa.
WhatsApp, now you can't. We try and download like 100 VPNs and they are not working. Like, there was so much that happened in that tournament. You need like an entire episode just to cover that tournament. And so what happened is people were now more conscious of where are we going? Like, how prepared are you for us? And that's what I think 2018, 2019. If you realize the standard really increased after
Yes.
PUDC 2017.
Yes.
Because Dominic set a standard on like the level of quality of organization. Akofena picked that standard and like did it even in a very, very good way. And the PUDCs that subsequently followed were very, very, very high quality in terms of what
Yeah.
they offered. So 2017 was an interesting moment for all of us that were there.
No, that's. I mean, it's not funny, but yeah. I mean, I'm sure back then it wasn't very funny,
Now we
but
laugh
like
about
this.
it. Then
Yeah,
it
now
was
we
not.
laugh about it, reflecting on it, because like we used to be getting updates on WhatsApp in terms of, oh my God, what's happening, and we take these things for granted, but these are real life situations. These are
Yeah,
There's something that could happen, and like I don't know, we are not even going to think about a circuit anymore. Like debate
no,
is dead. So and that's when you realize that even in dealing with things around debates, in terms of the administration, in terms of the organization and control, these are real
yeah,
life skills you are building, which is giving
exactly.
you in terms of being able to just take care of things and be proper and be responsible. But that was a good story. Must have been very, very scary.
It was scary, man. But we were busy walking on the streets like nothing is happening. We just
Yeah.
chilled. The tournament happened, it ended, we went home, everyone got home safe. So thank God. Um, yeah, I anyway, let me just if I go down, I told you, you need like an episode on that tournament
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
a lot of things happened. A lot
I
of things.
mean
I hear other
I
people
mean
got arrested.
whoa.
People got
No,
arrested. It was mad.
that's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, yeah. Now that it's come to mind, I think we're going to have a special episode to talk about these, because it's also very, very important. Especially if you still want to sustain PADC moving forward, we want to learn from these things. We want to like get the story out there, right? So I think
But
it's good.
credit, let
And
me also say credit to the CAP and I think the participants, because we
Mm.
somehow managed to keep the thing going even with
Mm.
all the things that were going. Like when it's just like joy in chaos, like we somehow
Mm.
just managed to go through it. Like Cap just
Yeah.
kept, pushing and making sure things are going on. Participants didn't complain too much. They were like, even with all these things going on, like we're still gonna have a good time. Debaters
Yes.
have a very resilient spirit. So I think that was a good testament also on the resilience of debate, which is even once things were going wrong, I mean, we were still having the time of our lives.
No, yeah, I think that's really really impressive. We're gonna take a look into more of the tournaments, but I want to pivot around here and
Mhm.
along the timeline and get to 2019. So it's
Yeah,
it's 2019, and we have another version of PUDC this time in Ghana, and you are competing for Strathmore yourself as a
yeah,
speaker,
yeah,
and this time you were a real contender. Could you
yeah.
walk us through what your expectations was even before the tournament, what preparation then looked like for the circuit, and how you could assess, sorry, the the performance of the circuit by then, given that it had grown after 2018.
So I think 2019 was probably the most pivotal year in East African debating, not because of even just PUDC, but everything that happened before PUDC. So I'll talk about it in two sections. One, I'll talk about from an individual perspective, then I'll talk about it from what the circuit did in preparation for that. So personally, I had gone through a lot of like near misses. So I went to PUDC 2016, I didn't break, but I missed with 1 point, and I said I must break next time. 2017, I managed to break, but I made it to octos and I lost in the first out round. I was so disappointed because I thought it was a very winnable round. We just weren't
Mhm.
strategic. So I said, we have to learn how to be strategic in out rounds. 2018, we break, we beat the first out round, but we are removed in the second one. And now I'm like, what am I gonna do? So I was like, man, 2019 has to be that year where we go
Yeah.
all the way. And I remember from a personal perspective, I was reflecting on it in Dar es Salaam, and this is a very dramatic story, but I'll give you the synopsis of it. We
Yes.
were having a team meeting, and Erasmus, you're actually to blame for this. I'll blame you and BSI for my trial because I mean, part of the shift is the East Africans came to Tanzania and they met BNI, they met Erasmus, they met JJ Atakpa, and
Yeah.
they're asking them questions like, what do you guys do? How do you train?
Yeah.
What do you guys prepare? And I thought they were so fascinated with what the West Africans do. And the conclusion from the discussions with you guys was, we are doing nothing at home. So you guys challenged them so much that the leadership in East Africa is failing them. So I had called a team meeting. I remember after the break. Imagine calling a team meeting during after break night, and 5 out of 6 teams that you took to the tournament have broken. That is a big, big,
Yeah.
big for us. But I remember during the meeting, man, hey, our members like they ate our heads. They chewed our heads as leaders. And I was like, my God, you guys, are you not
No
seeing
way.
that all the effort we've put has led us to these wins? They were not seeing that. They were like, I don't know, B and I told them in West Africa, they camp for 3 weeks, they don't sleep,
Yeah. Stuff
train.
like
I don't know,
that.
they were like, don't do anything. Our leaders are not. So I was like, okay. So what that moment did for me is that, I mean, there was a huge, huge, like, not a conflict, but there was a challenge in terms of what are the leaders doing. And I've never been one to shy away from, like if
A
anyone
challenge.
questions me, it's fine. Question, challenge. So what I said, and I think the outcome of that meeting was, okay, this is what's going to happen. Moving forward, we're going to be more collaborative in the way we
Mhm.
lead. Because what had been happening before is that it was almost like a dictatorship. Because as I told you, I'm training, I'm administering, I am
Yeah.
the one competing. So I think what happened is it now became more collaborative. It's like, okay, let's
Mhm.
bring more people in. Let's have more people like sharing their ideas and training. And in fact, what that did is that it gave me freedom. So what I
Mm.
did is like I handed over duties and I was like, you guys think we can do this? Okay, here
Yes.
you go. And so me and my friend Jabez, after that tournament, because we used to have different partners then. I remember after that meeting, we used to stay in the same room. We sat down and we said, JB, it's me and you now. Like, there's no, like, you've heard what people have said. Like, we are
Yeah.
dictators. So let's them, let's leave them to lead. Let's prepare for PADC 2019. And
Yeah.
JB and I struck a deal, I remember, on break night 2018 that we were going to speak at PADC 2019 together
Mm.
no matter what. So that was where the partnership for PADC 2019 was formed. I then formed what was a small group of people, and I love those people so much, called the Cabal. I call them the Cabal. So
Mm.
within the society, I picked a group of 8 people who I knew were very committed to debate. These were like
Yeah.
debate nerds. They didn't have to be the best, but they were like nerds. And
Yeah.
it didn't even have only Strathmore people, it had 1 or 2 people from outside. And we would meet every Tuesday and Thursday after school from 7 to 9 or 8:30 to train. So me, JB, and those guys in the cabal, we would meet, we would train, do rounds, share feedback,
Mhm.
read materials, do what. And for a whole year, we did that. And that, I think, is what allowed us to perform
Mm.
as well as we did in 2019, because we invested a lot of time doing this. Because now I was not so worried about training everyone. I was
Yeah.
more on like, let's get down to work. And I think I listened a lot. I listened to the most speeches in 2019. I don't think anyone has ever listened to more debate speeches than me in that year. And I listened, I read a lot, and I think I was very intentional about what I did, which is how we
Yeah.
ended up where we did. So 2019 individually was a revolutionary year for me, because I think that's when I peaked, or
Mm.
in debate, there's a glass ceiling that for you to
Yeah.
get to the top, there's a very huge, you must break
Gap.
that ceiling.
Yeah.
2019 is where I felt we broke that ceiling finally, from a mid-table group to maybe higher up. Maybe not at the top,
Champions
but
League.
higher up.
Champions League spots.
I'm now a Champions
Yeah.
League sport.
No, but
So that's
let me
fast.
let me come into, because it's still on the train to answer the question, right?
Mm,
Coming into the tournament, I don't know
mm,
if you, because I'm sure you were ingrained into the society more. There were lots of conversations around
yeah,
expectations.
yeah.
What were you hearing about yourself? Were people like sort of like putting your name in the
No,
conversation, and how did that make you feel? Because like I, for one, I think it was I think it was either the quarters round or so, where like
yes.
you were in the room and I was like, No, wait, these guys, something is going on over here."
It must have been
And
quarters. It was the first round we
yes,
made.
yeah, that was the first one, because I'd heard you were beating a lot of people, and I was like, yeah, like I know Macharia was good back in 2018, and now he was like
Mm,
ripping people off. So
yeah.
what was sort of like the expectations and the chat moving into the tournament, and what effect did it have on you in terms of performance within the tournament?
2 things. Number one, on expectation, externally, nobody rated us. Like every
Mm,
time I would hear people talking about contenders for PADC, as usual, the minorities, the poorest of the poor was East Africa. So nobody rated East Africans. We were like the guys who maybe reach quarters, and like
yeah,
that was the best anyone had given us. So externally, I don't think anyone rated us. I don't think we had participated in enough competitions externally to even be rated. So I didn't
yeah,
blame people. It was like, okay, that's fine. Internally, though, and I think within the region, this is personal. I felt like this was almost like a last shot. And it eventually
mm,
was. Like, I felt
yeah,
this was my last opportunity to, because I've done 2016, I've done 2017, I've done 2018. Each year I've improved, but I've not
yeah,
gotten to the top. It was like
yeah,
the last time, the last straw. And so internally, it felt like we are carrying the entire region. Like it's now or never, guys. So
yeah,
internally, the expectation was very high. Even in the union, we expected to perform well as a union. So
mhm,
in terms of expectations, they were very high internally. Externally, nobody rated us. So that was fine. How did it make us feel? It's fine. In fact, we invented a word that we still use to today. It's called stay bubbling. So our
yeah,
we were just going to stay bubbling throughout the tournament, never going below. Champions League, Europa League spots. Let's
yes,
play between fifth to 15th. Let's just play there. Like we don't need to be too high. Like we just keep there, stay bubbling. And for us, our mentality was, we're just you don't rate us, so we're just going to shock you. And it
Yeah.
really that's what ended up happening.
Yeah, and it worked. It worked, right? I'm going to maybe I'm going to focus on the out rounds because I thought those were the most dramatic ones, and
Yeah.
I liked our quarters. In our quarters, I think I was OG, you were
Yeah, I was
CG,
CG.
and
Yeah. We
I've
had
forgotten.
the Botswana and Motlasi and
Yeah,
Motlasi and I think Harabo. One of the Motlasi's
yeah,
partner. I remember it was UB, and there was
yeah,
another Ghanaian team in
yeah. Kenya's the team
CO
in
that I came
CO.
with. We had beaten Jeremiah and Solomon in the Octos
Exactly.
together. We had like,
Let's talk about that Octos because
yeah,
like KMUST and UG rivalry, right? So it came out and Jeremiah and Solomon had been knocked out of the Pasha.
yeah,
And
yeah.
this was the team that made the final the year
The
before in
previous year, yeah,
Tanzania. And
yeah.
we're sort of like going at each other's neck. So when I heard it, of course, I mean,
You are
Solomon is
happy,
my friend now, but I'm happy. But I'm like, what happened? Because
yeah.
they're like, what happened in that room? Then I was like, oh, like Macharia, I think you and the other team, the
Me and
KNST team,
JB,
knocked
yeah,
them out, and obviously that's when like the interest started coming from. What happened in that room? Could
yeah,
you walk us through that round? How you were able to
yeah.
execute that?
What I remember very well, and this is my personal opinion, I do not think like let me give my personal opinion of what happened in the
Yeah.
round. It was a very close round, and now with hindsight, I can look at it and actually say this. I think it was a closer round than maybe the results made it seem. I would have
Mm,
expected a split, especially on the second and the third, but I do think it was a fair call. I think
mhm.
Solomon and Jeremiah in that round, they were either not strategic or they were not listening. Because I remember it was the round about the ability for us to use like deep fakes. You remember it was about
Yes.
morality of deep fakes, about whether as a political tool. And I
Mhm.
remember we had set up a very strong case about why politics and morality are not the same. And politics
Mhm.
does not always have to be moral. Ideally, it's based on a utilitarian framework of
Yes.
winning and ensuring the best outcome for. So the framing had been done, and I usually remember that PM speech very well.
Yeah.
And they raised the POI. I actually don't remember what the POI was, but I remember the POI they gave me. I dismantled it in 1 minute because it was a very good POI, but it was literally like the cracks of the op case, and we
Yeah.
responded to it very well. Here's the problem: those guys came to run the same exact POI
Oh.
as their case, and it had already, I think, been dismantled in
Mm.
their debate. And I think at that point, the judges had already listened to the response to that POI.
Yeah.
And I think when they were trying to save the case or they were trying to bring back the POI and frame it into the debate, I think it was a bit too late for them at that
Mm.
point. One thing I love about that round is that it had very good judges. So they were not going to make a rep call. It was, did
Yes.
this make sense? And I genuinely think both teams or and I actually think it was the POIs. I don't even think it was our
Mm.
case. Both me and Jabez had intentionally planned to take their POIs because we knew they were the strongest team in the
Strong
room
team.
and the team to beat. And when they raised those questions, I think they were still trying to make it look like politics and morality ought to go hand in
Mm.
hand. Something that had already been like passed by the debate. I don't remember it
Mm.
very well. It was a long time ago. But at
Yeah.
that point, it was too late for them. I think the whip tried to clean up the mess that had already been, but it was too late. I think in PAUDC out round, there's no room for error. And I think
Mm.
they made that one error that I think costed them. I still think they were much closer to the second place than they were to the first, but they messed up the case. Not messed up.
Mm.
Messed up is a strong word. And don't get me wrong, I have a lot of respect for Solomon and Jeremiah. They were great
Yes.
debaters.
Yes. Yeah.
Grew up watching them actually. But in that
Mm.
round, man, I think they were off. I think it's just a bad round. They were just off. Like the case was not. In fact, when we left the room, I remember talking with the team that was in Gov, the team that was in our closing, because I was OG, and there was,
Yeah.
I think they were in CO. So I talked to OO and I was like, "Did you understand what they were saying?" They were like, no. Then
Mm.
I asked CG, "Did you understand what these guys are saying? They're like, no. I was like, okay,
Uh,
so it's not just me. But
yeah.
it was a very, very difficult round for them.
Yeah,
I think they
I mean, people. I don't know about now, but like that's the reason I loved PADC. It was I know people talk a lot about like judging quality, especially when it comes to African tournaments and things like. But
yeah,
within the out rounds, for
yeah, they
me, it
were very good.
reflected. Yeah, they were very good judges, and it almost was reflective of well, even if you don't think that, yeah, technically they should have gone out, like in outrons, the outlook that you have
Yeah.
or the outlook of your team really, really matters. So yeah, like it's I think it's one of the things that happens or is to be expected, especially in outrons that some of the big teams drop. But obviously, now that you had beat the finalist, I'm sure there was you had beat
There was
one
some
finalist.
expectation. And
Yeah,
now
there
we
was an
met you in the
expectation.
quarters.
So I'm sure the next job was now take out these guys, right?
Yo.
But I think that quarterfinal room was wild. It was wild
Yeah.
because like we also struggled through the tournament, and
Mm.
that day I PM'd. People don't give me enough credits for this, but I PM.
Yeah, I remember. I remember that
I,
round.
I
I
PM'd,
remember.
and I think I gave one of my best speeches, even from a
Yeah.
position that I was not familiar with. And I know you guys came in there and you ate up the rest of the debate. It was right after the round. It was clear that it was a gap bench call. I was like,
Yeah, it was a
I'm
back
just,
bench.
I'm going to take this away, but I'm going to be very, 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 very careful about these guys moving forward. So
Yeah.
on, on from that, moving into one of the most
Semis.
controversial rounds in the
It's
whole
not
tournament.
controversial if you ask me. I don't think it's. I don't know why
Yeah,
everyone makes it
So
really controversial.
faithfulness has had its chance to speak on this, and I'm sure you had to listen to the episode. So
Yeah.
put that into context and walk us through the round. Why are you saying it was not controversial?
I think this is me speaking in hindsight. I think the call was exactly reflective of what happened in the round. I genuinely think the call is exactly what happened. I think there was a clear first. People disagree with me, but
Yes.
it was us. I think we
Yeah.
were clearly first in that room. I don't
I think
think,
I've
and I think
considered
the
to that
problem
many
with that,
times.
yeah, I think the problem with this is that the streaming didn't work. So
Yeah.
nobody can like watch this round and see we won that round clearly from OG. You know,
Yes.
this issue of Sudan, I remember that motion. It was about Sudan and the
Yeah.
transitionally military. It was an East African issue. We had read about it intensively. It was in
Hmm.
our news every day. We had debated it several times. So we knew this topic, by the way. And this is our second OG, by the way, in like out rounds. So we
Yes.
were ready for it. And I think we put up a very strong case. Here's
Yeah.
what I think, and I think this is where I say it gets really difficult because I think the problem with the case and Kumbi and Faithfulness, this is the first time we are meeting them. They've gone through the
Mhm.
tournament almost top. I
Unbeaten.
remember, do you remember when they lost their first round and the entire hall burst
Yeah.
into jubilation because they had lost
Yeah.
at around 6 or something? So we knew these guys as giants. Like these guys are, I don't even know how we were making out of this room. But here's where I think they messed up. And I don't think Faithfulness realizes it.
Hmm.
When Kumbi asked a point of information to opening opposition, he sold out their extension. He
Mm.
actually, I remember that round very well because Kumbi's POI to opening up ended up being his extension. And I remember after
Mm.
hearing that POI to opening up, I told Jabez, you see that thing they said? Run an entire argument on that thing. Like that thing. And he told, Jabez was a very brilliant BPM. He was like, don't worry, I had it already. I'm ready. So JB runs that thing. And I remember I was waiting for the member of Gav's speech. I think by the time OODLO spoke, I think it was Amos and I don't know who else. It was Amos and
Dawn.
Kachi.
No,
Was it Kachi?
no, no, no. It was
It was
Dawn. It
the
was
University of
Rex.
Lagos.
Tekim
Yeah,
Rex.
yeah.
Yeah.
University of Lagos. After the opening exchanges, I knew we were beating
Yeah.
OG. Like I knew OOOG, we are through. So I listened to the extension speech, and I think Kunbi's entire speech was JB's DPM.
Hmm.
It was actually a regurgitation of the DPM speech.
Hmm.
And I knew these guys were in trouble. And I remember you guys came and responded to them, and your extension was a bit shaky against us, but at
Yeah.
least it was an extension different from what I think the opening opposition had presented. And when faithfulness came, I remember at that time, he tried to bring back the case, because I remember faithfulness speech very well, because he was talking about why the bullet and the gun, or the
Yes.
person with the gun always has more power and everything. But even in that attempt to bring back what they were trying to say, I think it was too late again for
Mm,
that saving to happen. And I think you came and I think you cleared them. And I said,
mm,
in fact, when I left that room, I told JB, we are through. The question
yeah.
is, who among the closings is coming with us? And sure enough, it was a 3-2 split. And I think I tend to believe that it could have gone either way on the closing benches.
Yeah.
It could have actually gone either way on the closing benches, because I think both extensions had their pros and cons, but
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that the call was reflective of the round that we had, which is a very close closing bench with a very clear winning OG in that round.
Yeah.
I think we beat CG. I think we beat OO. I think in our diagonal, I remember the problem of why you didn't beat us.
Yeah.
You guys didn't touch our case. You
Yeah.
guys didn't touch
I
our
didn't.
case. You never
I'll tell you
responded.
why. I'll tell you why.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so I'm obviously entering into that round, and like to understand this clearly, you need to know the build up towards the tournament, right?
okay,
So obviously we've won. I won 2018, but I was no longer speaking with BNI, and 2018 was sort of like my first PUDC. So there
yeah,
was expectation that people wanted to see what I can now bring to the table. However, I think people also thought that between BNI and myself, I was like, without BNI, we were not the team that won.
just
That was
one,
like
yeah,
very, very dominant. So, like,
yeah,
obviously, like BNI is massive in terms of his capacity. So, without his ammunition, it was very, very going to be very, very hard to replicate this. On the other side, Faithfulness was coming into one of his first PADCs after 2015,
yeah,
and he had swept the circuits, especially the West African circuits. He had won like 7 trophies off the bounce. So there was a lot of noise. Faithfulness came into the tournament with with a lot of commentary saying that like there he didn't see a lot of competition, which was fair because like even around that time I was in the circuit when he was still dominating. So now entering into the tournament, there was the meetup where I thought, okay, yeah, I should be able to hold my medal. We met 5 times. I lost all five. We met 5 times. It's not a joke.
yeah,
We met four or
yeah.
5 times. I lost all of them. So they became
So
a
it was
boogie
like,
team.
yeah.
Yeah, so they became a boogie team. So
Uh,
obviously, naturally, I was gonna get scared when we get into a room with them because now the my mentality was a bit shaking because after the third round when we lost, I was like, we are not going to beat this team. So
beat
I
these
gave
guys.
up. Yeah, and the other rounds when we met them, I was not even trying hard anymore because you know how like sometimes these things work. So I
Yeah,
said,
they.
no, we'll think about them later. Now we got to the semi-final, and obviously I'd seen you guys in the quarters, and I was like, "Whoa, we need to be careful of you guys." But
Mm,
with these guys there,
faithfulness is what we guys need.
yeah, so they are going to break. So I needed to beat you guys. So that was the strategy. That from CO OG, that was I was going to focus. With all due respect, like everyone sort of felt they were a bit out of
They were
place,
out.
even with the debates and all.
Yeah.
Then after your speech, I was like, hmm, these guys are onto something because you had covered, you ran like 3 or 4 arguments and you had covered the
Yes,
breadth of the
that
debate.
matter dumped seriously.
You matter damn. And then now
Yeah.
JB had these responses and he usually runs a bunch of responses and then one case from
Yeah.
himself.
One case, exactly.
Yes. And he did it. And I was like, these guys are also in OG. No one will kick them out after this. I don't care what these guys come and do, but if they are considering OG versus CO, everyone is going to have empathy for OG, especially because it was PUDC and the
Yeah.
closing bias was not there as much. Then I also genuinely felt that the CG extension was not as fresh, just like you were saying.
No, it
It
was
was a
not.
bit shaky. But
Yeah,
I thought we had a good extension.
you
Um,
did.
yeah, we tried to run it, but I don't think it was represented very very well. And I said it on
Mm.
the other episode with Faithfulness, it wasn't represented very very well. And obviously, Faithfulness was a very 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 good whip. So he had
Yeah.
now made it seem like, yeah, you guys didn't bring anything to the debate, and I can promise you the debate was looking as a gap bench. So now I had to make the choice: do I go after you guys with the
For
thinking
the
that, yes, with the thinking that, yeah, obviously Faithfulness broke and Kumbi broke first, so they are gonna be preferred, or I go after them because like I had actually had meetings with people. I spoke with people about how to beat approach the round, given everything, and everyone was like, yeah, don't focus on Faithfulness, don't go after them, because like it was kind of like this personal vendetta,
they're
especially
gonna
after
go
the many.
through.
And I was like, nah, I'm gonna do it. So after Michael delivered his speech, I was like, nah, I'm gonna have to go after these guys. So I listened to Faithfulness speech word for word, and I was like,
Yeah.
the only mistake that they made within that round was giving me the last say. I'm not going to touch the OG case. I'm not going to touch the OG cases. OG is gone through. I'm not even going to respond to OO. I'm just going to dedicate my time to show. So
To
I have
do
a
it.
recording of my speech. I had a recording of my speech. I listened to it all the time. It was just focused on um just kicking out CG or just responding to their case and just showing why our case was better. And that's why I didn't respond to you guys. That's it, because I knew you guys
And
were
God
through.
bless Erasmus, because if you did, who knows what would have happened? Because
Because
and I think people forget like debate like is about the round. It's not about
mm,
personalities. It's not about
yeah,
the rounds you've had before. It's not
yeah,
about it's about that one that you are in.
yeah.
And credit to F though. And I thought like I remember watching the whip exchanges. It was intense. Like
it
F
was
came back. Hey, F was being blood.
it
I
was
remember F
mad in that round.
when you listen to F, it sounded completely different from what Kumbi had presented. So
Yes,
it was like bringing it back. And then I remember
yeah,
even my Lampa had really confused us for a moment. And then when you
yes.
came, it was like bringing it back. And so there was such an intense whip exchange that I think it should be studied by like teams today in terms of I don't think I've listened to a more intense exchange than the one you had with F. I think the only one that comes close is another one I watched in 2016 between Oliver Dixon and a Jim. It was
Mm,
that kind of level.
yeah.
So I thought those whip exchanges were like top tier. And I
No, I
think you guys
enjoyed.
had the final say. So I thought it was a
Yeah,
fair call.
yeah. To be honest, like 2-3, I'll take. If it was 5-0, then I'll say it was fishy. 2-3,
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I thought it was close to. When I was done, it was one of those rounds. When I was done with it, I didn't want to think about it. I just went out to go and sleep because I knew it would be spoken about. But I also knew we'll
Yeah.
go through because of the speech
Yeah.
that I'd given. But I knew that there
Mm.
was going to be controversy. Either you
Yeah.
guys
Ah,
get kicked out,
I
then it's
don't
going
think
to
there
sound like
was
a
a
rep
case
call.
for kicked out. I
It
don't
was
think there
no.
was unless you bring in politics because it
Exactly,
was so
exactly.
clear.
Because
It
that's what I
was so
felt.
clear.
I felt if any call went without you guys, it was going to look like a rep call. So
It's a rep call.
I was like, I'm just going to forget about it. But yeah, I think those whip speeches were intense. And because sort of knew what faithfulness could do, I wasn't debating. I was speaking to the judges. I was just looking into their soul saying, you
Yeah,
guys know what this guy can do. Because if you remember, I made those statements clearly that, yeah, he's a good
yeah.
whip and he's going to convince you on some things. But this is what has
Uh,
happened within the round, and that is exactly what you should judge. And I
wow.
mean, it worked. It worked, but I think it's fair to think that yeah, the call could have gone onto their side, but I don't
Could have
think.
gone either way, I think.
Yeah,
I think the only
yeah,
sure call in that round, either way,
was
OG
OG.
through. I didn't
Yeah,
see
we
how
didn't
we
see
were
that
losing
performance
both
coming.
of
Yeah,
no,
we
I
didn't see
genuinely
that
didn't see how we were
performance
losing
coming.
both of yeah.
But obviously, now like the Giants killing obviously continues after having survived your hand. I would say we make it into that final. And now you're staring
Man,
at the possibility on the back of West Africa winning for the first time in
yes,
2018. Now East
yeah.
Africa could also do it. Like we could return you guys the favor and give you the trophy.
But
And
Erasmus is not Erasmus doesn't do charity, guys.
no,
Man,
I think And I think there was a similar conversation in that final. I think it was a
Yeah.
4-3 split, right?
It was 4-3. It was 4-3. Yo, it
So
was so painful. It was so painful. But let me give my comments because I've never spoken about this before. I
yes,
think it was again, it was a similar one to like the semis in terms of after listening to that round, it was an up bench. The question was,
yes,
how was it going to go? And I
mhm.
think it just, you guys ran a very high impact case. We ran a very like principle heavy
Principle.
morality case. And the classic impact bias just played in. And I don't blame him, the judges. I think it could have gone either way. And I think it was which one has, the consequentialist case you guys ran just took the day.
Mm,
Although I think that it was very reflective, and I think I thank the judges for being fair. I think it would needed if it was 7-0, that would have been
yeah,
a very unfair call. I think it
yes,
was much closer, and it was. I just remember after that I was walking around the halls, and I was with
yeah,
Anam, and I was like, just pray one judge sees our vision. Like all we needed was a judge fighting for us, and we got that, but we didn't get enough. And I think
yeah,
it was sad, but it's what you were talking about, the narrow view of success, which was
yeah.
after that, of course, we felt bad, but we looked at it, I think a month later when we met with JB and we were like, we did
Man,
that.
that's
Like
incredible. Yeah.
we are now we brought East Africa to the map. Now
Mm,
everybody knows who we are, and we've put ourselves we've given
mm,
ourselves a good showing, and that is success. Sometimes success is
mm,
not going all the way. Sometimes it's
mm.
even those near misses and looking at the journey from not breaking in 2016 to standing in that final in Akofena. That's
Yeah,
that's success, I think. And I
that's
think the
man.
final was dramatic. Like it was a
Oh,
3 hour
yo,
session.
yo.
I remember.
No, it was just befitting of the tournament itself, and I'm so pained. I think there are a couple of videos of it on YouTube, but
Yeah.
I'm so pained we didn't get like the quality of streaming that we got compared to
Streaming.
what we
That
did
was
with
a very
Tanzania.
intense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
compared to what we did, and I think that's the lack that I sort of like had with the 2018 being streamed very, very well. So it puts it
Yeah.
in everybody's mind, sort of see what you do. So I'm
What
just sad
happened?
we didn't get it because that motion, we need to talk about that motion. It was the thinnest thing I've seen since maybe noodles.
It was very thin. And I think it was the only thing. And I think if we were debating that round today, Erasmus, I kid you not, you would probably lose 8 out of 10 times
Yes,
because the content was not that much. It was a moral philosophy case with two arguments or three arguments max on each
yes,
side, literally.
yes,
So I think what happened is most OGs or opening teams in the round, just because of our naivety, ran the principle heavy intuitive cases and
mm,
forgot to run the more pragmatic impact, like best case, worst case, those
mm,
evaluations. And the closing
yeah.
teams, okay, CG put aside, credit, I mean, Andrews and were doing
The
their own
missile.
thing. They were having their own missile debates going on over there. I think you guys just found a small opening somewhere and
Very
you tore it
small.
apart and
Very
you
small.
tore it apart and made it look like the biggest thing that could ever happen. I still think that's a very good stream to teach kids today how
Mm,
to make your extensions look important. Because you
yeah.
guys made a very tiny thing. What was it? It was what will happen to future generations after the bomb. It was like,
Yeah.
what happened after this? And it was like,
Yeah.
first of all, based on a lot of like hypothetical assumptions of what that society looks like, but
Mm,
then you characterized it really well. People are a bit mistrusting. They've just been lied to by the government. What
hmm.
are they going to do? We want to build a stable society post
Yeah.
this missile, and therefore the trust is important for continuity and
Yeah.
stability. And man, you made that thing look big. We were like, why did that's so obvious? Why didn't we see that? Oh man.
No, it's crazy because like I don't think there was, and in the way I like to think about debates and uh probably like, yeah, that's how I think about debates. they feel for me it feels like fixed matches
Mm.
because there was no way, yeah, there was no way you guys were going to run anything else. I knew top half you guys were clearing them.
Yeah,
Like as
the
much as Karim was,
philosophy.
yes,
Yeah.
as much as Karim was a very very good speaker, Elisha
Mm.
was not very very matured to be able to
Mm.
defend the case
Mm.
that was coming from you guys. And you guys,
Yeah.
obviously, I think there had been a round where you had run that sort of philosophy thing before, and I
Yes, we
knew
did.
you were good with it. So I knew the
Yeah.
philosophy stuff was coming, and there was no way you were going to do the other stuff. The only problem we
Yeah.
had was that Michael was a philosophy person too, and wanted to run
Ah,
those same things.
the same things.
Yes. So I was trying to tell him that look, these guys can run it. And because it was the quarters, yeah, you guys ran that philosophy thing in the quarters. So I said,
Yes.
these guys are
Yeah.
gonna run it. So please, let's look for so right from minute one, I wasn't thinking about the philosophical things. I was thinking of the extra
Other
things. Also
things.
be yeah, also because in
Mm.
round five we had done the same thing where we ran the principal case and faithfulness sort of gave a good picture of what the practical case could look like. And
Mm.
the judges had just said, yeah, they like the practical cases a bit more when I
Yeah.
went for feedback. So I was like, yeah, let Macharia, let him take it. I don't even care about that. I'm just thinking of, and I just so I had what I wanted to run. We're just looking for one scenario to fit it all in and to present
Man.
our case. So once that was done, in fact, I didn't even think we meant we were going to win, but I
Mm.
thought it was going to put us in a conversation because
A very
you
good
guys,
conversation.
yeah, yes, you guys had grabbed the debate by then. And after CG, like when you're OO and OG doesn't respond to you very well, and then CG messes up the debate, you're just like waiting for the C
Wow.
extension. So,
I was
so
like, especially after Sasu, I knew we were first. Currently, we are winning. I was like, Ampa, please, just don't do that. Do that thing you did in the semis. Like, just speak about things, and then Erasmus will come explain later. But did you guys switch? Did you speak first,
no,
or
I
who
still
spoke?
spoke whip,
Ampa.
still spoke whip.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, it
man.
still had that mix, but I think it was a similar thing within my whip speech. I just had
Mm,
just stopped debating because like for me it wasn't working, that strategy of coming in there trying to show I'm brilliant, stuff like that. Like I knew
mm.
it just wasn't working, so I began to just speak to judges, speak to people, speak to the audience. And
Man, you did so
lucky
well.
yeah, luckily this one worked, but I like I couldn't look at you after like the final because and yeah, I'm saying this now because it still felt like, yeah, I won. I knew, yeah, there was a case for me to be won, but I knew how close you guys were, and I was
Close,
wondering,
close.
yeah, was there a world where if this was switched, you guys would have won it? And for me, I think it was an incredible job you guys did getting to that final. I'm still is
I think
probably talked about in East
I
Africa a lot.
still
It's
say
legendary.
I still say that I think that debate is debated and judged by 10 different panels. You probably will get 5-5 or 6-5. Like it's
Yeah.
one of those debates. And I think for me at that point, I was a bit annoyed with the result, but I looked at it and I was like, it's a fair call. I've always been
Mm.
a quite a pragmatic person when it comes to
Yeah.
results. I said, like, if CO wins, fine. It's painful, it hurts. We could have won, but
Yeah.
fine. There's a case for them. There's a case for that that win to be made. So our position usually, and I remember Jabez and I, we were not too salty all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes we were not. But after that round, we were like, okay, we lost to a good team, so
Yeah.
it's still we still got 3 votes. Although nobody remembers second, I think this one people will remember.
No, everyone,
And like,
everyone remembers you guys. Everyone I have spoken to, like the highlights of it was like OOC. I think it was one of those cases where even though you guys were running with the debates, it
yeah,
was one of those debates where we had just pulled the rabbit from the hat. So people were like, ah, no, that's impressive. 'Cause you had done the
yeah.
standard thing, but people were just like, ah, no, that's impressive. So it felt a bit easier to just say, yeah, because that's finals. Finals is a show. No one is
It's a
really
show,
listening
yeah.
to the debate.
And
Yeah,
can
no
go
one's really
either
listening
way.
to
So
the
you
debate.
can't
Yeah,
control the factors of finals. I think
yeah,
the thing though, and I think that thing hurt me so much. I probably made a promise to myself that I must go back to PUDC one day and win a final. Like that at some point, even if it's when I'm 30, I must show up. I must show up and win. Like
I'm
that
probably
was
sure it'll be easier for you these days anyway.
no,
You'd
I don't
say?
know. We'll find out. Who knows? We might show up soon. Let's wait. Let's wait and see.
Yeah, we should probably organize. I was saying that using the Shaft podcast platform, we could probably organize an oldies PAEDC,
All
and
these PA,
like,
like a master's PADC.
yes, yes, and settle all this comparisons and good conversations.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
let's
faithfulness will want to talk to me and you.
yes, yes, we want to have a
I'm sure a
discussion.
lot of people have scores to settle.
Nah, no, that's incredible. But let's after coffee now, obviously, we were all looking forward to Botswana, but then
Yeah.
COVID happened, and
Mm,
we all had to be pulled into this online era where none of us knew how to survive. A lot of
mm.
unions and a lot of unions within Africa didn't come out of it well. But one thing about Strathmore is you guys came out even far stronger, in my opinion. And you
Yeah.
personally now had your stocks. All of a
Mm,
sudden, you were CA in like huge and major competitions within Europe and within Australia and other places.
mm.
What did the online revolution look like for you, and how were you able to capitalize on the upsides rather than fall into the fates that had fallen to a lot of the other circuits?
I remember that period very well because while 2019 was my speaking revolution, I think 2020, 2021 changed me now more holistically, which is I stopped speaking much. Okay, let's first characterize. You know, we are debaters, so we need to characterize.
Yes,
Online process went through fast a very huge, I think, and scary moment
the WhatsApp
called WhatsApp
moments.
debate. You remember the WhatsApp? You remember the WhatsApp craze? Man, that was a dark time. Anybody who was there at that time knows how dark those days
Jesus
were.
Christ.
When you used to record the debate speeches on WhatsApp, and then you wait for the reply to your speech 1 hour later. I don't know, network issues, people going to other rooms and stealing speeches, Googling. It was dark,
Yeah,
those were dark days.
someone could say their
So
speech wasn't loading. So from
it
like,
wasn't loading.
so we are waiting for MG speech since 9 o'clock in the morning, and without that,
And
the
we get it
judge
at
can
like
judge your
11,
wait.
and the debate can continue. Yeah, man, it was such a dark time. Like, so we need to characterize online. So that moment was just, I used to do like 3 tournaments a week because I was bored.
Mm,
People were bored. So people didn't know what
yeah,
to do. And this is why a lot of people fell off because now it was like, let's develop other hobbies, let's do other things. So some of us who are still debaters, the only thing we knew how to do was to debate. So
debate.
we would go for those online debates. You do like 5 of them in a week, sometimes even
Mm.
4 at a time. You're recording a speech here, you're recording a speech there, you're recording. I think I won like 23 WhatsApp tournaments. I don't even count them. Like I don't even look at them, but I was like, surely what's going on? But that was the first phase. And then
Yeah.
the second phase where I think things started getting a bit interesting. So I want to mention this. We formed a group with some African debaters who are very passionate about
Mhm.
debating. I remember it was called UNISA. So it was
Oh
University of South
yes.
Africa. The reason we formed that group was because University of South Africa was an online university, so it didn't really have a lot of checks and balances. So what we would do, the good African debaters who are interested in online debating, we are in this group, and we would sign up for external tournaments
Mm.
together. Initially, it was formed as a social group, then it metamorphosized into like a tournament group. So, like, I remember Mason was there, Maria McKelv, we
Yes.
had Tando, Eze, Andrews, Ali. There were a lot of guys like
Yeah.
really, really important and serious debaters who were in that group. Rafael Mugomba from
Yes.
Zim. Those who Maraf. So there were a lot of like interesting personalities. Andrews was also there. So from
Mm.
UNISA, what we would do is we would form teams and then we would go and debate in Australia. And you know, Australian time zones are crazy. So we would
Yeah.
start debating at like 2, 3 a.m. and the tournament would go until 1 p.m. around lunchtime. So every weekend we would sign up as groups and we would go and debate and we would go and debate. And this went on for like 3 months. I remember we would partner different people. We would break at those tournaments. There was a time we even had an ESL final of all
Wow.
Africans.
Yeah.
Give us some debate about Malaysia and Singapore, and we didn't know what to do. So we had a very interesting introduction to debate. And the reason we chose Australia was, and credit to the Aussies, Australia's tournaments are the cheapest in the world. So
Mm.
Australian races are like $6 to $10 per team. So it's very accessible in terms if you split the bill between two of you, you can maybe get $5, and that
Yes.
you go and compete at a tournament. European tournaments were still £40, £30,
Yeah.
which is quite a lot of money. So we would go to Australia instead. And we went through it grinding. And you know, people see people succeeding today, they don't understand some of those processes.
Yes.
Some of the people that were in that group are your PAUDCCAs, they're your
Yeah.
winners, your Andrewses, the champions of most opens around. And I remember we would wake up at 1 a.m., debate the whole day until like almost lunchtime, then go to the WhatsApp tournaments, debate the rest of the day, sleep maybe at 8 p.m. until midnight, wake up, go and do the Australian tournaments. And we did that for very many weekends. And
Mm.
I think after a while, I got tired of speaking because I wasn't really seeing my elevation in this because I COVID was not ending, so there was little incentive to speak other than maybe just personal development. So
Yeah.
I decided to try judging, and that's where everything like skyrocketed. Like it
Changed.
was crazy how fast like that shift happened because I started by judging again in Australia because Australians don't charge judges reg fees. So
Mm-hmm.
I remember my first Australian comp I judged, and I hadn't like judged any other tournament competitively. I had CA'd a few things, but you know, in
Yeah.
Africa, we give tips not to the best judges, but to the best speakers. So I had a
Yes.
few CAs under my belt, but I hadn't judged competitively. And I remember judging, was it the University of Victoria, something? And I judged the whole thing. I chaired every round. And the next thing I know, I'm chairing the final in my first ever comp
Wow.
in Australia. And I was like, wow, okay, this is cool. I went to another one. I shared the final again. I was
Wow.
like, oh, there must be something I'm doing right. I
Yeah.
decided to try Europe. And when I was starting my European judging, I went with the idea that I'm not even going to ask them for money. Just let me come
Mm.
for free. I want to
Yeah.
learn how to judge. And my first ever tournament to judge in Europe was Amsterdam Open. And I was paneling. And I think in round four, I judged with Lovro, you know, Lovro
Mm.
Spam, the CA for Worlds
Yes.
2023, for the first
Yeah.
time. And we had a fantastic discussion. And I don't know what he went to tell the CAs, but by round four, I was chairing again at Amsterdam Open. And I broke. And I remember in round four, while I was chairing, guess who is paneling me? It's Jason Shaw, the world champion from
Whoa. Wow.
2020, in the room. I
Wow.
think he was a
My
CA
man
at the
is big
comp.
time.
I'm telling you, like this is my first ever European comp, and I've just judged with Lovro. I didn't even know who he was, and
Yeah.
then next thing I know, I'm chairing, and Jason is in the room, and after that, I'm chairing again, and I break, and you know that goes on, and my guy, like from there, it was just level after level after
Mm.
level after level, and
Mm.
that revolution is something that I credit to COVID because it made everything accessible. But there's one thing people don't know about this process. Maybe I can give one comment here
Yeah.
that I think is important. So people don't think we woke up, just started going to tournaments, and then we were breaking. I used to judge minimum of 2 competitions per weekend,
Mm.
depending. I want you to see the amount of hours. It's either I'm judging Asia and North America or Asia and Europe. So what would
Mm.
happen is you wake up at 3 a.m. every weekend. You judge from 3 a.m. to midday to judge an Asian comp. Then after that, European comps would start at around midday and then they would proceed until around 7 p.m., 8 p.m. So
Yeah.
every day you're judging from 3 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single weekend
That's
for
brutal.
almost 9, 10 months. So people see, these guys, man, they just are well connected. That's how they
Yeah.
got these positions because they know people. They don't know. We used to work. How many hours are those? It's over 16 hours of
That's over 16
judging
hours. Yeah.
for 9 hours. I mean, it's for 9 months, 16 hours, 16 hours every weekend, every weekend,
Hmm.
every weekend. I mean, of course, the skill became better. So it
Yes.
was getting better and better and better. And so the better you become, the more likely it is people will see the value of what you're offering.
Hmm.
Again, I used to shoot my shot. So I remember my first CA ships. I just would find those DCA applications. I just fill them, all of them that came, all of
Hmm.
them. I filled them. And I remember I got accepted at Southampton Open. Credit to Joseph Lewis and Manchester.
Yeah. Shout
I
out
think that
Joseph
was
Lewis.
Jason Woods at the time. And the other one that accepted me was Cornell Novice Nationals. That time it was headed by, I think, Joe Richer and a few other guys. Those guys, man, they opened it up because when I got
Mm.
those three opportunities, it like allowed
You
me
took
to
it and you
access a
run.
lot opportunities because now you get the more you interact with them, the more they can vouch for you, the more you can even show your skill to a bigger audience. And it was life changing. I mean, I judged almost every tournament there is to judge. So it was very helpful.
No, it's there's something there's a view I hold about hard work and success. Um
Mm,
I know, and I know for a fact, it's not like I even believe, I know for a fact that you are one of those people who believe in working. It's not even
yeah,
just about hard work. You believe that you need to
you
work
have to.
to get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think there is a notion about hard work which a lot of people miss, and that's why they do not get success from it. People think there is a definition of what it looks like, that you need to work as hard as this and then you're going to get this, that there is a sort of like automatic. And
No.
people always think they are working hard. So when you speak about, I know a lot of people who DM me and say, like I've been doing this thing so many times and you guys say do this and then you will get it. They don't know that something has to break in you. There needs to be a
Yes.
point where you feel okay, like no, okay, like now I'm very very tired, or nah, this is
Mm,
too much. Because I know for me personally, when I knew that I was going to become big in debate was in 2018 when I got stuck in Calabar. I went to Calabar on my own, and I don't know, for some reason we didn't have money to come back, and I was stuck there, and everyone was like, and that was when I knew that I'll go any length for this, and if I'm willing to
mm,
go this way, then something broke in me, I should say, because when I came back, everyone thought I was going to stop debate, and in January I was back there doing it. So when you began to tell your story about the length of time that you just had to stay behind your screen, even the investment in internet, um, quality video, audio,
audio,
consistently over time in your room, not sleeping, and
not sleeping,
no
man.
one sees this. No one sees this, and you not get the opportunity to speak about it. So when you go and advise someone the next time, you're probably like, "Oh yeah, keep working hard, do more tournaments." But to what scale?
What scale are you doing it? I
To
kid you
what
not,
scale?
Erasmus. Every weekend. Can you imagine sometimes, it's those things that during the weekends you're judging tournaments, during the week you're judging spas. So it
Yeah.
was like the every day you're just judging, 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 judging. You're in every judge's DM. Like again, you remember that I was telling you I text speak. I used to
Yeah.
text judges after every competition, Erasmus. My
Mhm.
first message was to the CAs. Send me my feedback from the form.
Yes.
What are people saying? And I used to keep a doc, a Google Doc.
Mm.
Every tournament, I fill in the anonymized. I realize, okay, there's a consistent problem that is coming up in my feedbacks, which is either they are too long or they are not clear or these comparisons are under dev. Like you intentionally work on yourself in a way that it's not
Mm.
just about advancement, it's about self development, it's about
Yeah.
becoming better at the thing and becoming more
Exactly.
competent. So it was a
Exactly.
very intentional effort that was, as you're saying, it broke me many times. You don't know how many times I was behind that screen. and my mind is shutting down, but I must still be here, and I have four
Yes.
more rounds to go. You take that coffee, you go run, come back, next round you're in. And it was like that for months, if not
Mm.
years, by the way. I think for 2 years. I don't know why I'm downplaying it. It was the whole of 2021 and almost the whole of 2020,
2022.
literally.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
even 2022, most of the beginning,
Yeah.
before the world opened up a bit more.
So would you say it was on the back of that? That's what now gave you the confidence to now say, because I still assume even after doing all of these things, you're doing well in tournaments, to be able
Yep.
to now say, I want to apply for to be on the CA board of Madrid Worlds.
Yeah.
That's a different level. Where was this confidence coming from? How did you approach the process? Because I know, by the way, applications are still open. Are now still open. By the
I
way,
know
so
people are applying, and
people are
I know the
applying.
exact thing they're going through.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I like to think that there is a state of mind that you should be in. There's some sort of preparation that you should be having. Because for me, this is the biggest honor for any
Yeah.
debater. If you start debating, to be on the beat, like that's the best you can sort of like do in terms of like an honorary position. What went into that level of preparation and then accessing that opportunity?